Coming up today, Fabrizio Romano has given a massive statement on Manchester United's transfer targets this summer. A striker is in the offing. Also, United are linked with the defender Antony Silva from Benfica. And has Gary Neville dropped a little bit of a hint about Erik ten Hag's future at Manchester United? Let's get into it. Right then, we are at Old Trafford for the news this morning. We've got loads coming up, as I've just said before, but let's start with some outs. And we've got Erik Ramsey, Manchester United coach, who has now gone to join Minnesota United in the MLS. He was brought in under Solskjaer in 2021, I believe, and at that time he was rumoured and reported to be a sort of set-piece coach, and then we didn't score from any set pieces for about a year and a half, and then all of a sudden he became just a general coach. So maybe he got taken off that specific set-piece role, although that's just my speculation. The weather here is absolutely horrible, by the way. It's absolutely freezing. He's now the youngest manager in the history of MLS, which is slightly surprising. I think he's only 31 years old, which he looked older than that. I can't believe he was only 28 when he joined United. No offence to him, but bloody hell, I thought he was in his early 40s, bless him. So he's gone. It's a weird one because, you know, Ten Hag obviously came in and brought his own coaches. Steve McLaren was one of them, Mitchell van der Gaag as well, another one. And then we've had this sort of legacy fall-over period of Ramsey, who came in under Solskjaer, and, you know, did Ten Hag know him? Did he want him? Did he like him? We don't really know. All we know is he has now left Manchester United, and it'll be interesting for me to see if and who we replace him with. Like, do we get someone else in? Does Ten Hag pick a coach that he wants and bring him in? Or, with all the speculation about Ten Hag's future, do we sort of say, actually, we're not going to get anyone in, and if you're still here in the summer, then we'll support you? I wonder, that might be a little clue, a little tease as to the future of Erik ten Hag, whether we replace Erik Ramsey or not. Of course, the plan could maybe be, we don't need another replacement, we don't need someone else, but I think it's one to keep an eye on. And, you know, United have lost a coach, but it wasn't Ten Hag's guy anyway, and, you know, maybe a new couple of coaches wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Manchester United at the minute. Next up then, Fabrizio Romano, obviously the transfer expert, the guru. He gets a bit of stick, but I defend him, I support him. I told you that the other week, he announced one of Derby's players was getting sold, like some academy Derby player. And you think, how has he got his fingers in that pie? Even Derby fans don't care about that. How does he care about it? Anyway, he's talking about Manchester United getting a new striker in the summer, saying that will be the main area of priority for Manchester United. Within this, there's a few different pieces here. So the first one is Anthony Martial is definitely leaving, according to Fabrizio Romano. We won't be extending his contract. He will be going for a free in the summer, which I think we all sort of knew, but then there were hints and suggestions that they were looking into a potential lower deal or something like that. I don't think that will be the case. Romano saying that Martial will definitely be leaving in the summer, which is one point. The second point is there is still speculation over whether it will be a younger striker to pair with Højlund or an older striker to sort of have as an understudy, for Højlund to sort of be an understudy maybe in terms of learning the game, and someone that can rotate with Højlund a little bit more when Højlund isn't fit or is out of form or whatever. He mentioned as well someone that's Premier League proven or knows the Premier League, which of course narrows down the options quite significantly. But let us know in the comments whether you think we need another young player that can push Højlund, and maybe they're better than Højlund, and if they are, so be it. Or do you think we need someone maybe toward the end of their career, maybe late 20s, early 30s, not quite as old as Ronaldo or Zlatan maybe, but someone more of that mould who's been there and done it, and who can guide Rasmus Højlund into the sort of prime years of his career and maybe teach him a thing or two about what it means to be a top striker. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a hard one for me because if you buy like a big young name, let's say Osimhen, it won't be Osimhen, but let's say someone like that, expensive player, mid to early 20s, they want to play every week as well. Yes, on one hand it might be a good thing to have great, real, you know, high-end competition, but on the other hand, both of them are being squandered by the other one. I think you almost need to look at what's been successful for other teams, and Alvarez, I know he's a young player, but he was signed very cheaply. He was signed to be a sort of backup to Haaland, and because of injuries and because of how good he's been, he still gets 40-odd games a season, as does Haaland. So you don't necessarily need one player to play 50 games and another player to play 10. You can get 30 or 40 appearances each, but I think it's more of that mentality thing of, I know I'm not coming in to replace Højlund. I think someone like Osimhen or someone like that would expect to do that. So for me, whether they're younger or older, it has to be about the expectation of the role rather than how much we pay and, you know, what age they are. We've got some more transfers coming up in just a minute, but before that, Rio Ferdinand is, and I must say I'm loving it, he's just gone full anti-Arsenal, hasn't he? He was saying the other week that Saka's not world class, and it's annoying really. I feel bad for him because he said it just at the wrong time. Because Saka this season, there'd been a lot of talk, you know, up until the start of the year about he's not in the numbers he had been. Maybe he's not quite developed the way people thought he would this season. Obviously, still a load of potential, but he's not really proven it. And then all of a sudden, he's got like 8 goals in his last 5 games, just as Rio Ferdinand went, he's not world class yet. But I think I know what he means. He's not proven it in the biggest moments, in the biggest games. The real top-class players don't just have a decent few goals like Michu. What they do is they win you trophies and they consistently have top-class seasons, season after season after season. Marcus Rashford got 30 goals last season. People still don't think he's world-class because he followed it up with a season where he's got, 6 goals so far. Saka's never had 30 goals. Saka's never won even the trophies that Rashford's won. And yet, people want to call him world-class, and I think, you know, I get it from Rio. He's followed that up, though, with a slight, I think, more ridiculous statement, but I'm actually loving it, talking about Arteta. He basically said, if United came for Arteta, if United knocked on the door and said, look, we want Mikel Arteta to manage Manchester United next season, Rio thinks he'd leave. Rio thinks he'd come walking to Old Trafford, let alone get his sort of blacked out Mercedes-Benz exporter that they always seem to get everywhere. I don't know if I agree with that. I can't imagine, first of all, United being particularly interested in Mikel Arteta, and secondly, surely he wouldn't leave to join United. Although there's part of me that thinks it would be funny just to do it just for the outrage, just for the uproar amongst the Arsenal fan base, but I'm not sure that I don't think it's possible personally. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Right, next up then, a transfer in, and this is Antony Silva, the 20-year-old centre-back for Benfica. He's come through the ranks there, played 20 games this season, looks to be a very, very promising young player. United clearly in the market for a centre-back, whether people go or not, we need reinforcements there. We've seen it this season where we're playing Luke Shaw at centre-back. I mean, Casemiro, I think, at the very start of the season, had to play a few minutes there as well. United have been lucky that Varane's basically been fit for the last 3 or 4 months in a row now, but Lisandro Martinez hasn't been able to stay fit. Victor Lindelof is playing at left-back half the time because of the injuries we've had in that part of the pitch, so we're pretty much down to bare bones. A centre-back is a must in the summer, and this is a potential guy that could do it. The problem with Benfica is, and you know, part of it is just because they've got this good track record, we know this, but they do charge an absolute premium for their players. It was like 15 years ago they got 30 million quid for David Luiz, and they've never looked back. You know, we've seen the players coming out there, we list them all the time, Ruben Diaz, João Felix, even, you know, Enzo Fernandez, sort of 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 million pound players. They absolutely do the very best, probably in the world, at getting big money for their academy players. So, you know, if this guy is any good whatsoever, you're looking at 50 million, maybe even more than that. United have to be very, very certain with these things at this point, because with FFP closing in the way it is, we haven't got the room to manoeuvre that we once did. We can't afford to waste 50, 60 million quid on a player, especially when these new owners are trying to prove themselves to the fans, trying to prove themselves to the football club that they know what they're doing, that they can find talent and they can scout the right players. We can't afford big missteps on players like this, so it'll be very interesting to see whether we go for him and whether he is the right profile for Manchester United. If you know much about him, I've not seen him play very much, I must be honest, let us know in the comments your thoughts on Antony Silva. And finally, speaking of Antony, no O Silva at the end. O Silva sounds like he's Irish. He's not. Antony might well be leaving. That was such an unnecessary way to get to that story. Daily Mail reporting last night, I think it was Chris Wheeler, who we've had on the channel before, saying that Manchester United are willing to listen to offers, should I say, for Antony. Obviously, this transfer hasn't been a success, has it? Last season, I think we could all see sort of green shoots, we could see potential in him, and this year he's got things going on off the pitch as well, admittedly. United in general look terrible, but he has been absolutely shocking this season, to the point where he's been dropped by the manager, who obviously brought him in for such big money. He's then been dropped even lower in the pecking order, where Amari Forson is playing ahead of him, even when we've got injuries to Rasmus Højlund. Then when the substitutes are happening, he brings on Amad Diallo before he brings on Antony. He's clearly not fancied whatsoever at the minute, and you can see why. He's in terrible form. It's just, you know what, obviously I don't like the idea that United have wasted money, and we clearly have, and even if we sell him, I think we'll get at best 35-40 million quid for him, and that's at best. But part of me doesn't mind the fact that we're being ruthless with this, and yes, we've made a mistake, which is crap. But if we put that mistake to one side, let's not make a second mistake by keeping him for 5 years, hoping he's going to be the player that we all can see he probably isn't. You know, we've done that in the past with other players. We've let players stick around for too long to the point where if he has another season next season like he does this season, you won't be able to sell him to anyone, let alone get 20 to 30 to 40 million quid for him, because his wages and all that start becoming completely prohibitive. At the minute, he's still got a vague reputation from the little bits he did at Ajax, the little bits he did last season. Let's get him out now before it's too late. United have to start being more cutthroat on the selling of players, let alone the bringing in of players. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is there any hope for Antony? Is there still a player in there? Let me know what you think. And finally, last night on Monday Night Football, it was basically the Manchester United episode. We talked a lot about these tactics on the podcast yesterday, so check that out if you haven't. But we saw Gary Neville, Gail Clichy and Jamie Carragher in particular going through United's high press, United's tactics, the lack of ability for United to stop teams counter-attacking, the number of shots we conceded, all these things we've been talking about as United fans on this channel. And in the chat and in the comments you've been speaking about them as well for the whole season basically. But there's a very interesting point that I saw at the end of that where Gary Neville is talking about Ratcliffe and about INEOS and about Brailsford, saying that he thinks they may well have already made their mind up on Ten Hag. He may be staying, he may be going, but he thinks they'll know what they're doing already. They can't afford to wait, like we said, you know, with Liverpool, with Bayern Munich, with other teams as well, Barcelona looking for new coaches. United can't dawdle, United can't wait till the end of the season and start looking for a new manager in June. And from what Gary Neville said, and let's not forget, because of that hotel there and other reasons, he has already been speaking to INEOS. He has already been chatting to them, consulting about the potential for new developments in and around the stadium here. Maybe he's heard something. Maybe he has a little inside track. He's also a Manchester United legend. Maybe he knows something that we don't about a decision that may or may not have been made about Erik Ten Hag's future. That's just my speculation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. That is going to be all from me. We're back later on with Uncensored as well. Me and Adam McCullough wallowing in self-pity at the state of Manchester United. And hopefully later on as well, fingers crossed, we will have House and Versus. And there's a lot for him to be versus against this week. Thanks very much for joining. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in a bit.